And just like that, the first Kraken domino of the 2024 NHL trade deadline has fallen, as the Kraken trade Alex Wennberg to the New York Rangers in return for their second round pick in this year's upcoming draft, the 2024 draft, and a fourth round pick in the 2025 draft, with notably that fourth round pick in 2025 originally belonging to the Stars, so it is the Stars' fourth round pick of 2025, but either way, the Kraken for Wennberg pick up a second and a fourth, as well as retaining half of Wennberg's cap hit for the remainder of the season, with obviously his contract expiring at the end of this year, where he'll be a UFA come the summer. Now, there's no way around the fact that with this trade, from a Kraken standpoint in the immediate here and now, it definitely doesn't help a team that's just 6 points out of a playoff race and trending upwards. Still, with Wennberg on that expiring contract and likely not coming back to the team next season, with Shane Wright in particular, but a couple of prospects ready to make their way up to the NHL, it made sense for the Kraken to get something out of Wennberg rather than just losing him in the offseason anyway for nothing. Now, right away, obviously, there's no way around the fact that from a Kraken perspective, this trade definitely does not help a team in the here and now that's 6 points out of a playoff spot in the West and trending upwards towards trying to make the playoffs for a second year running. And losing Wennberg, their second line center, and an important part of both special teams units, isn't gonna help that bid towards the playoffs over their last 20 games. With that having been said though, for the Kraken, who, as it stands right now, most models don't even give a 50% chance of making the playoffs in the first place, it obviously isn't a guarantee that even if they keep Wennberg, they do make the postseason. And if they were to keep him and not make the postseason, well, they'd likely lose him for nothing in the offseason, especially with a couple of prospects, Shane Wright in particular as a center, looking like they're ready to come up and take that spot as early as the start of next season, or maybe even the last few games of this one. Which, real quick there, Ron Francis did say that at least for now, Wright isn't immediately going to come up and fill that spot. He said that Wright was in a good spot at this point in time, but he might come up for the last few games of the season just to get some more experience at the NHL, just like we saw Beniers do with the last few games of the season before his rookie year. So who knows, maybe if the Kraken were closer to the playoffs or in one of the two wildcard spots, or maybe even in the Pacific Division spots, then maybe they hold on to Wennberg and see what happens here over the rest of the season and in the playoffs, where last year it was a surprise they made it there in the first place, and then they ended up winning a round and making it to game 7 of a second round. So you never know what could happen when you make the postseason, but I think from a long-term perspective, this trade does make sense, as the Kraken end up getting at least something out of Wennberg, who again was unlikely to return to the team coming into next year. And as for what the Kraken got for what, again, could have ended up being just 20 more games of Alex Wennberg in the regular season, well, they do get a second and a fourth, which could be very valuable down the line, especially considering the pretty sparkling track record that Ron Francis has had drafting, especially with the Kraken, where just that second round pick has been maybe his best spot in the draft. Now, obviously, he gets Matty Beniers and Shane Wright second overall and then fourth overall in the first two drafts, but the top of the first round is usually pretty hard to miss. But the second round, he has hit time after time already, or at least early returns point to that, with Riker Evans being the team's second round pick in the first season, and he's already made a difference at the NHL level in a few games this year and looks NHL ready, just hasn't quite gotten to the lineup in a consistent basis. Then in the next 2 years, also in the second round, Ron Francis picks up guys like Yager Furkus in 2022 and Carson Raycroft in 2023, both of whom are absolutely lighting up their respective junior leagues. That's even without mentioning guys like Jani Nyman or Nicholas Koko, both of whom are already playing pro hockey over in Finland. And Koko, a goaltender, is playing very well at that. So it seems like Francis hits pretty often in the second round, and getting another chance at that is obviously a good thing. Now, fourth rounders take a little bit longer to develop, so we'll see what the Kraken history of fourth rounders looks like in some time. And obviously, by that time, this pick will already have been used in 2025. But again, another player, another lottery ticket, can't hurt. But with all the details of the trade aside, and again the fact that it probably was the right decision for the team to make in the long run, it still does suck to lose another one of the Kraken original members, even if they were likely to lose him in the offseason anyway, with Wennberg having originally joined the Kraken as a free agent signing following the expansion draft, where he signed with the Kraken for 3 years at $5.5 million each. And since signing that contract going into the inaugural season, in the time he spent with the Kraken, he played 222 games, which was second only to Adam Larsson, in which he put up 33 goals and 76 assists for 100 points. Just the fifth Kraken player to put up 100 points with the team. Now, I think it's fair to point out that the Kraken probably were expecting a little bit more, especially when it comes to goal production, from a second line center who they're paying 5.5 million to, especially considering he was coming off a career high in goals production the year before with 17 goals in 56 games with the Panthers. Still, it's not necessarily terrible points production, but maybe not what you're expecting from a guy that's playing almost 19 minutes per night, and again, your second line center. And I will admit that while he did pick things up towards the end of the season, in the first half of that inaugural season, I found myself frustrated with Alex Wennberg on a pretty regular basis, but he did really pick things up in the back half, especially after the trade deadline thinned things out in that first season, and then had a great year last year, maybe not again with the points production, but that was never really what Wennberg added the most to this team. Because even for what he did lack a lot of the time in points production for the Kraken, especially given the role that he had, he, I would say, at least made up for, if not more than made up for, with the other parts of the game. Specifically being one of the best Kraken defenders, on the forward end anyway, one of the best defensive forwards they had, and probably their best player in transition, especially going towards the offensive end of the ice. As, at least in my opinion anyway, Wennberg, for the majority of the time he was with the Kraken, if not all of it, has been their best player in transition, especially going towards the offensive end, with maybe the only guys I would say have competed with him for that being Matty Beniers, especially the beginning of his rookie year before he was drawing a lot of the attention from opposing teams and drawing the toughest matchups, which definitely has slowed him down. We've seen that through his struggles offensively this year. And then Andrei Burakovsky when he's fully healthy, which unfortunately has not been most of the time he's been with the team. But with Wennberg having been probably the smoothest skater on the team and one of the most agile skaters, as well as being very good at handling the puck, it did make him quite good at getting the puck through the neutral zone and getting the Kraken into the offensive end, cleaner than most of the other players on the team were able to do, or at least not forcing puck battles down along the boards with the dump and chase, which last season they were very good at taking advantage of on the forward check, winning those puck battles, but Wennberg often made sure that that wasn't even necessary. Now, yes, once he got into the offensive end, that's where the frustration that a lot of fans had with him really shone the most, as he pretty much refuses to shoot the puck unless it's just the absolute last possible option, and he doesn't necessarily have the best shot in the world, so I guess in that way it makes sense, and he is pretty good at passing the puck. Unfortunately, he would frequently take the option of a low percentage pass rather than a wide open shot, and yeah, that's definitely not always the best choice, and even on not too rare of occasion, shut down the quality scoring chances that he helped produce in the first place. But even aside from what he provided at 5-on-5, he's also played a key role in both special teams units for the Kraken. Now, that hasn't always been a shining bright spot for the team, and this season has been statistically pretty tough for him on the penalty kill. Still, he's been there and soaked up those minutes, blocking a fair number of shots, and then on the power play, that's where he's really made his difference. And more often than not, at least this season anyway, it's a difference he's making that won't show up on a score sheet or in his points totals, as a lot of the Kraken goals they've scored on the power play this season have gone through Alex Wennberg screening the goaltender in front of the net. With then a fair number of the goals the Kraken have scored on the power play this season, whether it's been McCann, Bjorkstrand, or Dunn, potentially never going in the first place if Wennberg isn't providing that excellent screen in front of the net. Now, whether or not the Rangers use him that way, I would imagine probably not quite so prominently if he does see time on the power play, especially with their power play not really having any problems at this point in time, but it is something that he was quite valuable doing for the Kraken. Also, real quick, I think I forgot to mention his contribution 5-on-5 defensively, where again the offensive part of his game was definitely more the strong suit, or the transition towards the offensive end was the strong part of his game. But defensively, at least in transition anyway, once again Wennberg was one of the better transition defenders the Kraken had on the forward end. And this is a forward end that does play pretty well in their own end of the ice. Of course, in their own end of the ice, I would say Wennberg's kind of an average defender there. Again, he's willing to block pucks, but while he's never been the most physical player, part of what made him so good in transition defensively also shows up at times in the defensive end, his ability to close gaps and use his footwork and agility to get up in the face of offending players and even strip the puck from them at times. So for the Rangers, at least through the rest of the season and their playoff run, I think there's a good chance that he fits in well there, especially with it being a team that already has a few pretty good goal scorers. So having one extra guy that's good in transition and getting you into the offensive end to set those guys up could be a pretty valuable asset that they acquire for, again, a second and a fourth, which if you end up winning the cup or making a deep playoff run is probably worth it. As always though, I'd love to know your thoughts down in the comment section below about this trade from either perspective, if you're a Kraken fan, which most of you probably are, or if there's any Rangers fans watching this. From a Kraken standpoint, it's definitely not the biggest steal of a trade, like say maybe the Lauzon one in the first season at the trade deadline, but it still is, I think, good return for the Kraken, especially given what Ron Francis has been able to do in drafts. Otherwise, maybe your favorite memory of Wennberg as a Kraken player, or what you're most looking forward to having him a part of your team if you are a Rangers fan. Until next time, though, if you have made it to this point, thank you very much for watching. If you liked and enjoyed the video, like and subscribe are down there, help support the channel. And until next time, stay safe out there, be good to each other, God bless, and go Kraken.